Hey you guys, it's James here with Hamilton Bait and Tackle. We're sitting out here in the boat real quick, and today's Tech Tip Tuesday is related around what I'm wearing right here. It's hoodie season, it's starting to cool off, and what I'm going to be throwing this time of the year, no matter where I'm at, no matter what I'm doing, no matter if I'm fishing largemouth, smallmouth, I'm gonna have this guy tied on right here. This is a Alabama rig, an A rig. It's that time of year, bait's starting to get grouped up. Hoodies are coming out in the morning time. It's starting to cool off, and it's time to start going to work with one of these bad boys. What I'm gonna basically do, drive in my boat until I see bait fish on my electronics, look for some offshore fish, but these fish are gonna start pushing shallow, so you may not see the fish, but you're gonna be around bait. I'm gonna be targeting depth ranges once I start finding them. Eelgrass, grass clumps, rock piles, current breaks, boulders, it doesn't really matter. I'm going out there here and I'm using this thing as a search bait. I'm trying to catch schools of fish. I'm trying to find active fish. I'm even trying to trigger inactive fish into feeding, which this thing can do. So we'll talk about setup here real quick for you guys that have never thrown one of these. This is a 7'6". This is a heavy Defender series. It's a fast. It's very parabolic though, so it acts more like I would say a heavy moderate plus. It still has enough backbone to throw one of these things here. These can get up there and weight pretty good, and rod is very important. The fish are gonna smash it. They're gonna absolutely hit this thing as harder than you probably ever felt anything get hit ever before on a bait. Smallmouth absolutely crush this thing. Sometimes what's gonna happen though is the rod, if it's too stiff or too fast, it's not really gonna allow the bait, you're not gonna really be able to have it load up properly before you set the hook on a fish. So we'll talk about that here in a second, but rod's key, rod's important. This has been kind of my go-to A-rig setup. It's a 7'6" heavy Defender series. Like I said, it's kind of like a moderate plus. It's a fast, but it's still very parabolic. It bends pretty deep into the blank. So you've got plenty of backbone, but also plenty of give. I throw mine on fluorocarbon. This is 20-pound Vicious Tora fluorocarbon. So it's 20-pound breaking strength, but it's actually like 17-pound diameter. I throw mine on fluoro instead of braid because you're gonna get it hung up every now and then in rocks, boulders, a brush pile here or there. The one thing I want to be able to do is if I have 50 or 60-pound braid tied on, I'm not going to be able to break that bait off. It's going to be a huge endeavor trying to make that happen. And sometimes it's just not worth risking breaking my other pieces of equipment, my reel, a rod, anything like that, trying to get an A-rig back. But I'm going to be searching for some of that offshore structure. Like I said, isolated grass clumps, rock piles, boulders, anything. Like I said, especially current seams where bait's kind of grouping up is going to be a key area. I pretty much always throw a 3.3 inch. What I'll do on this guy here, the trailer, instead of throwing a shad color like this, I'll put a chartreuse one on here, or you can put a little dot on the tail sometimes to give them a target to strike if they're following it. It's a pretty violent bite, like I said. This reel right here is a 7 2-to-1. It's enough reel that I can pick up line on a fish, but it's not going to be you know, one of those reels where when I go out and I'm fishing, I'm having to fish super slow on the reel handle to compensate. Because what's going to happen is when you're out there, you're excited, you're fishing a tournament, whatever it is, you're not going to want to pick up as much line, because what's going to happen is on your live scope or your forward facing sonar, you're going to see your bait come up in the water column, and you want to kind of keep it consistently across the board, just flat planing out, and do what you can with it. Every now and then I'll mix in a excuse me, we got an airplane or helicopter going overhead. Every now and then I'll mix in a snap of the handle, or a rod twitch or a palm, something like that, just to kind of give an opportunity for something different, instead of just standard cranking and winding it. But it's a pretty straightforward retrieve. You're going to heave this thing as far as you can away from the boat, count it down to your depth, and then slow roll it. It's kind of like fishing a spy bait, but it's a little bit different. Like I said, it's going to take some time to get used to. You need to really get out there and get a feel for casting it, reeling it down to depth. These weights, these different heads are going to have different fall rates. The other thing too is a lot of guys will throw, for the BFLs or tournaments, you can only throw 3 of these. So these 2 are going to be dummies. But what's going to happen is instead of throwing a screw lock on these, I'll give you a little piece of juice here. Instead of throwing a screw lock on these, what I'm actually going to do is take some of these and actually cut the hook off of them. I still have a screw lock on here. I can still have the bait held up there. But the thing about it is when this is going through the water column, I don't want it to swim like this, like basically bottom down. I want it to still swim flat. The only way to do that sometimes is to equalize the weight in the A-rig. So, you know, we're gonna get out there and we're gonna do it. And I'm gonna go ahead and cut some of these hooks off. And what it's gonna do is, again, the weight's gonna be consistent around the whole A-rig. So you can keel weight it, you can bottom weight it with maybe a slightly bigger weight. You can do a lot of different things, but for the most part, I wanna try to keep that weight consistent. Like I said, some guys like to use braid, some like to use fluoro. For me, it's not about, you know, the fish being able to see the line. It's not that at all. If they're gonna bite this, they're not gonna care what size line you throw. For me, it's about some of the forgiveness in fluorocarbon. It's going to, you know, stretch a little bit, not a ton. So it's gonna allow me the opportunity to, when I get a bite, make sure that fish is on that bait before I set the hook. So one of the other things that I want to talk about is the hook set on this. So when a fish bites this, you're gonna feel a thump, or they're gonna smash it. And a lot of times what'll happen is when they do that, you'll set the hook and you'll miss them. Well, instead of reeling it back in, the best thing you could possibly do is let it fall. Just give it slack, nothing. 9 times out of 10, they're gonna be back on it when you reel your slack back in. So momentarily, I'm just gonna feed them line, let the rod out, give it slack, let it fall, they'll catch back up to it and get it. I am actually, even if I feel a thump and I know they have it, I'm not gonna set the hook on that fish really until the rod starts to load up, which tells me that fish either has it and they're turning with it, or they've got it and they're slowing down. Whatever it is, I'm gonna wait for that fish to actually load up on the rod before I let them have it. And then from there, you're just trying to just grind them in. I mean, it's heavy line. Sometimes you're gonna catch them 2, 3 at a time. You're just trying to grind them in the boat. The A-rig that I throw of choice, aside from the swim baits, you can pretty much throw any sort of 3.3 inch swim bait, as long as it's a shad or bait fish imitator. Up here we have shad, alewife, emerald shiners, so these really small swim baits work well. This is a Shane's Baits Mini Blades of Glory. The reason I like these, they're tiny, they're compact. These arms are replaceable. And then they actually make a type of A-rig like these mini blades. They make one that's a mini finesse, mini finesse, so it has no blades. I'm gonna vary that based on what the fish are doing. If there's a lot of guys throwing A-rigs, I'm gonna throw them without blades just because everybody's gonna be throwing them with them. Down south, you can kind of tinker with it based on sun or overcast, but for the most part, if I'm fishing a tournament, I'm gonna have one on the deck with blades, one without, and I'm gonna let the fish tell me which one they're biting better. And like I said, trailer, if I'm around perch, I'm gonna take one and use a perch color with a couple shad colors around it. Sometimes even during practice, I may mix up and throw different baits around the whole perimeter of this to see if there's a pattern on which one they're keying in on. And then I'll switch the whole rig out to that color because I know that's the bait fish either for the day or the week or that time of year. But it's fall, it's getting cold. It's time to start breaking out this guy right here. The Alabama rig, the A-rig, the bait chandelier, whatever you want to call it, it's time to get one of these out there. So hop online, hop on HamiltonBaitandTackle.com. You can order any of the gear, like I said, heavy rod, somewhat parabolic bend, 20-pound fluorocarbon line, 1/8 ounce, swim bait heads, 3.3 inch swim baits, and an A-rig. You can get out there, check it out, get a feel for it, see what the rave is all about. These things are fish catching machines, and I guarantee if you break one of these out, commit to it for a day, you're gonna catch a ton of fish. Not to mention, you can catch some of the biggest fish you've ever caught in your entire life on one of these things. From now all the way until spawning season, basically, I'm gonna have one of these on the boat. It's a great tool to get out there and catch fish with. Hope you guys have a great day. Hope you enjoy it, and I hope you get out there and catch your new PB on one of these things. It's a blast. Again, my name is James with Hamilton Bait and Tackle. I hope you guys have a great Tuesday.